All right, everybody, buckle in because the next 10 days are shaping up to be one of the wildest weather roller coasters we have seen all winter. And I am genuinely concerned about what is brewing on the back end of it. Right now, a huge chunk of the eastern United States is locked in a deep freeze. Wind gusts are howling, snow is flying across the mountains, and wind chills are making it dangerous to be outside for any length of time. But what comes next is what really has me on edge. Within the next 4 to 5 days, temperatures are going to surge 20 degrees or more above normal across the south and east. We are talking 70s in February. And I do not like seeing 70s in February. When the atmosphere heats up that fast at the wrong time of year, it is loading a gun. Winter does not just quietly step aside. It comes crashing back. And when it does, all that built-up warmth and moisture collides with incoming cold air. And that collision is where storms are born. The models are now consistently flagging a significant low-pressure system developing late next week that could bring everything from heavy rain to a dangerous wintry mix to a legitimate severe weather threat depending on where you are. Both the European and GFS are picking up on this, and the European in particular has now shown this signal on back-to-back runs. That kind of consistency this far out demands attention. So today I'm going to walk you through every phase of this pattern, city by city, region by region, so you know exactly what is heading your way. Let us start with what is happening right now, because this clipper system that swept through is still making its presence felt in a major way. Heavy snow has been pounding the mountains of western North Carolina and East Tennessee, and some of those totals are impressive. Right along the Tennessee state line, isolated spots are picking up 8 to 12 in. Ski country is getting a feast up there, but the wind is the real story for a much larger area. Gusts across the western Corollas are running 40 to 50 mph with the higher terrain in Henderson, Transylvania, Swain, Haywood, and Madison counties seeing gusts over 60. And it is not just the mountains catching this wind. Just about everybody east of the Mississippi is feeling it as this Arctic air pours in behind the front. Here is your city-by-city breakdown for this weekend. New York City is looking at highs barely reaching the upper teens today, with overnight lows dropping into the single digits and wind chills well below zero. Boston is even more brutal, highs around 15 with wind chills pushing 20 to 25 below by Sunday morning. Philadelphia sits around 17 for a high with dangerous wind chills overnight. Washington, D.C. and Baltimore top out near the low 20s, but that relentless north wind makes it feel like single digits. Buffalo is buried under fresh snow with temperatures in the mid-teens and wind chills near -15. Pittsburgh and Cleveland are locked in the teens all weekend. Detroit is in the same range with blowing snow complicating travel. Chicago has already seen the worst of the snow, but temperatures sit in the low teens with nasty wind chills. Indianapolis is around 20 degrees with everything feeling much colder. Down south, Charlotte is in the upper 20s. Raleigh is hovering around 30. Asheville is sitting at about 26 with a wind chill of 12. And if you are heading up into the high country near Boone, you are looking at wind chills near -4. Greenville, South Carolina tops out around 40. Atlanta reaches the mid-30s. Nashville is in the mid-20s. Birmingham and Montgomery are in the upper 30s to low 40s, which is about as good as it gets across the east right now. Now, here is where the script flips completely. Starting Sunday, that Arctic grip slowly loosens. Temperatures begin moderating across the central states, and by Tuesday into Wednesday, a massive ridge builds across the eastern half of the country, and the warm air just floods in. We are not talking a modest warm-up here. We are talking a 20-degree above normal surge that is going to make people forget it is February. Let me give you the midweek numbers. Atlanta is pushing into the mid to upper 60s by Wednesday. Charlotte climbs into the low 60s. Nashville hits the mid-60s. Birmingham reaches near 70. Greenville and Columbia, South Carolina land in the low to mid-60s. Raleigh warms into the upper 50s. Savannah and Jacksonville push well into the 70s. Orlando and Tampa are flirting with the upper 70s. New Orleans hits 70. Houston is solidly in the mid-70s. Dallas reaches the upper 60s. Memphis pushes past 65. Even further north, Washington, D.C. gets into the low 50s. Philadelphia and New York City climb into the mid to upper 40s, which after a weekend in the teens will feel absolutely glorious. Indianapolis and Columbus reach the low 50s. Chicago and Detroit get into the mid to upper 40s. Now, here is the part that a lot of people are not going to want to hear. There is a real possibility that this warmth creates a wedge situation across the Corollas and parts of Virginia where cold air gets trapped at the surface while warm air rides over the top. That boundary between the cold wedge and the warm sector becomes a focal point for storms once energy arrives. Charlotte, Raleigh, Asheville, and even Greenville could find themselves locked under that colder air on the north side of the boundary, while locations further south, like Atlanta, bake in the 70s. Where exactly that wedge sets up is going to determine who gets storms, who gets cold rain, and who gets a wintry mix when the next system arrives. That is one of the biggest question marks in this entire forecast. And that brings us to the main event. By Thursday into Friday the 13th, a powerful upper-level disturbance comes barreling out of the west. The European model has been remarkably consistent with this feature, showing it on multiple consecutive runs. Now, after backing off briefly on one run, it came right back to the same solution, which tells me this signal is real. You cannot forecast off one model run in either direction. One run showing a storm does not mean panic. One run erasing it does not mean relief. You look for trends and consistency, and right now the European is being very consistent. Here is what it is showing. A significant low-pressure system develops over the lower Mississippi Valley Friday evening centered near Alabama, with a central pressure dropping to around 991 to 993 millibars. That is a serious storm. The track of this low determines everything. If it pushes northward, it brings cold rain for much of the southeast and a substantial wintry mix across Kentucky, Virginia, Ohio, Indiana, and Pennsylvania. On the south side of that low, where warm, moist air from the Gulf is clashing with cold air rushing in from the northwest. That is where the severe weather potential lies. For the severe weather threat specifically, I am watching southern Mississippi, Louisiana, southern Alabama, and the Florida Panhandle most closely for Friday evening into Saturday the 14th. Birmingham southward is in the zone. Mobile, Pensacola, Biloxi, and Hattiesburg could all see strong to severe thunderstorms. The primary threats would be damaging winds with isolated tornadoes possible, given the wind shear profile. This is not an off-the-chart signal, but it is real enough that I would not be surprised to see the Storm Prediction Center start issuing outlooks for this by early next week. The Atlanta metro area gets into storm activity as well, though the severity depends on how far north the warm air pushes against that wedge. Savannah and the Georgia coast are in the warm sector and could see strong storms Friday night into Saturday morning. For the Corollas, this is likely a cold rain event, especially if the wedge holds. Charlotte and Raleigh stay on the cold side of the boundary. South Georgia cities like Savannah, Pooler, and Jessup could see the worst of the storm activity as the low-pressure tracks nearby. On the north side of this system, a significant wintry mix is possible. Pennsylvania, Ohio, Indiana, Kentucky, Virginia, and West Virginia are all in the zone for snow and ice as the cold air wraps around the backside of the low. Virginia, in particular, cannot seem to catch a break this winter with wintry precipitation event after event stacking up. Now, beyond this system, the pattern does not calm down. Another warm-up pushes in around the 18th and 19th, and the European model is even trying to bring a wintry mix back to the western Carolina mountains by late February. We are getting into that time of year where the atmosphere is constantly battling between winter, trying to hang on, and spring trying to take over. and those battles produce storms. For those of you hoping for more snow, I have to be straight with you. Outside of the western North Carolina mountains and the typical higher elevation spots in the northeast, the extended models are not showing any significant southern snow signals over the next couple of weeks. The European ensembles have it at nearly 100% probability for western North Carolina and East Tennessee, and the usual spots up north, but everywhere else stays quiet on the snow front. The action for the lower elevations and the south is going to be in the form of rain and thunderstorms rather than the white stuff. So let me tie this all together for you. This weekend is about surviving the cold and wind. The mountains are getting hammered with snow, and everyone else is just trying to stay warm. Early next week, the warmth surges back with temperatures climbing 20 degrees above normal by midweek, reaching the 70s across the deep south and 60s across much of the southeast. Then Thursday through Saturday of next week is the window I am watching most closely, as a potent low-pressure system develops and brings a combination of severe weather across the Gulf states, heavy rain for the southeast, and a wintry mix for the Ohio Valley and Mid-Atlantic. The key variables are going to be the exact track of that low, how far north the warm air pushes, and where that cold air wedge sets up across the Corollas and Virginia. Those details will determine whether you are dealing with a cold rain, a wintry mess, or a full-blown severe weather event. The European model has been remarkably steady with this solution across multiple runs now, and that kind of consistency gives me real confidence that something significant is coming, even if the fine details shift between now and then. I am going to be all over every model run as new data comes in over the next several days. Stay warm out there tonight. Keep an eye on the sky heading into next week, and we will talk again very